everybody. I'm Greg Asner. I'm with the Center for Global Discovery and Conservation Science. Today in the Coral Classroom, I'm really happy to have Chris Teague from the Division of Aquatic Resources for the state of Hawaii. Now, the Division of Aquatic Resources is the division that takes care of all of our coral reefs here in the state of Hawaii, and they're part of the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Chris, welcome to the Coral Classroom.
Hey Greg, thanks for having me.
Tell us about yourself. What got you into coral science? What got you into coral management?
Well, I started when I was diving in California, work on temperate reefs. So I started with doing a bunch of reef surveys in Southern California, and then I started grad school in Northern California doing all these fish and invertebrate and algal surveys. And then I kind of made a switch over to the coral reef systems about last year.
Well, that's really cool. Here we're on the Kona coast off the Big Island, and I think your job is to take care of these coral reefs and to understand them, to manage them all along the Kona coast. Do I have that right?
Yeah, so we're responsible at our Kona DAR office for the entire west coast of Hawaiʻi Island.
So you've got quite a big expanse of coral reef to study, manage, take care of. What is it about coral reefs that are so important?
Well, so reefs are important for a lot of different things. So first of all, we just like having coral reefs so that we have plenty of fish around. People like to eat some of these fishes. Some people like to see these fishes. But also reefs really provide a great barrier for coastal development, say, where it kind of adds a layer of protection from waves so that they're not damaging people's homes and buildings on shore.
That's pretty amazing, and it all comes down to these corals that create the habitat.
Exactly. So I'm from Northern California, where we have rocky reefs and kelp forests. So the rock structure itself and the kelp is really what's providing the structure there. But here in Hawaii, it's the corals. The corals, by laying down all this hard structure, actually create all this amazing diversity of forms that you see here.
It's pretty amazing when you look around. We're on a beautiful coral reef here, just off the Kona coast. And look at all the different types of corals we have, just even in one place. It's pretty amazing.
Exactly. You have lobe corals, you have finger corals, all these little different holes and nooks and crannies, and all these places for fishes, invertebrates, other organisms to live and hang out and really make their home.
So corals and fish, they have quite the relationship. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so like I said, the corals give a lot of habitat. Fish also live in these habitats. So the crazy thing is you have all this different types of structure here. So, for example, these finger corals provide little small gaps in between them, so small fish can hang out inside them and find protection there. All the larger holes, say from these lobe corals, they give a bit of larger structure, larger holes for even bigger fish to sit in. And then you have larger reef structures that allow for protection for even bigger fish. So there's kind of a place for everybody here.
It seems to me that without having all of these different coral species here, you actually would reduce the kind of the types of crannies and nooks that you would get. Like these finger corals you talked about, if it was all finger coral, it seems like it would be all for small fish, whereas these larger corals are for other size fish. Am I getting that right?
Right. You need all different forms. You need all these different species to provide these different types of habitats. And you need the rock structure itself to provide a different sort of habitat.
Ah, got it. Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so it's all an interconnected system. So the fishes rely on the corals rely on the fishes, the invertebrates rely on all of them as well.
But what doesn't get enough attention, perhaps, is the role that the fish are playing in actually helping to maintain the coral. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that works?
Yeah, so all the fishes have their own roles on the reef, right? So we have all these herbivores, for example. They eat algae. So herbivores, they're plucking away at all the different chunks of algae, and there are 4 different main types of herbivores. So we have grazers that kind of go around just plucking the little pieces of filamentous algae. We have browsers that kind of are mucking up the little bits of sediment along with the algae. And there's scrapers that go and actually take chunks of of dead coral, of live coral, along with the algae, and they clear up space. And then we have detritivores that are eating more the interstitial bits of material.
Wow! That's mind-blowing. There are these different groups of fish Each group has a bunch of different species in it. They're playing these different complementary roles in kind of what it sounds like is gardening, even though the corals are animals. But they're kind of gardening this whole place by eating the algae that would otherwise grow over these types of areas. Do I get that right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I don't think a lot of people appreciate the two-way interaction between corals and fish this way.
Right.
You have a really deep understanding. And that comes, I guess, from not only your scientific training, but the management role that you play. Tell us more about how the work you do feeds into management thinking.
Yeah, so our role as managers, we can set rules for fishing, and if we set them right, then we can allow for more of these herbivores to hang out on the reef, and they can do their job and allow these corals to thrive.
So basically what the Division of Aquatic Resources is focused on is trying, if I'm getting this correctly, is trying to maintain the reef almost through the activities of the fish that feed back to kind of prune and take care of these kinds of areas like the one we're on here today.
Yeah, it's a goal called reef resilience. So we want to make sure that these reefs are resilient to big changes like coral bleaching, like you mentioned earlier. And we can do that by setting these rules so that everyone can still be able to fish, collect their food for their dinner table, but also there's still plenty of fish around to do their job and keep these reefs healthy.
Well, Chris, it's been great having you here in the Coral Classroom. Thank you. Really appreciate seeing you here on the reef today.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Greg. This has been fun.
Okay, I'll see you on the reef.
Sounds good.